Military payment certificates for the next 4 phases. Okay. Now, the next series introduced, these are the ones introduced in the 1960s and also printed. These has the number 611 because it was devised and probably printed as well in 1961, though they did not actually put them into use until January 6th of 1964. The next series has a somewhat different series, 641, but it belongs to a different continuity, namely that for Vietnam all by itself. Vietnam has always been given a separate set of these things from everywhere else. So, and that was introduced on August 31 of 1965. I do not know what would have been used by American servicemen in Vietnam before that point. Whether they used the other one, or regular currency, or local currency, I have been unable to find that information. So, the next series, designed in 1965, you notice it mimics the other one, but this was meant for the rest of the world, although by this time, when these are introduced, only 3 in 1969, April 28, 1969, there are only 3 countries left: Libya and Japan and Korea. And in fact, Libya and Japan would cease to be used after just a couple of months, leaving only Korea. And around the same time, it seemed that it made sense not to bother with the little denominations anymore. We could probably just get by using regular American coins for the fractions of the dollar. And in particular, the 5 and the 10 and the 25 cent were already coins without silver by the time these were introduced in 1969, so just use the silverless coins. We're not putting silver out here. The $half still had silver, so these may have been allowed to continue on for a little bit longer and hence are a bit more available, because you'll notice these have a funny look to them. Their numbers are all zeros, and so that's because these are not real notes. I just provide them here so as to allow the viewer to see what these notes would look like. The actual notes, some do exist, are extremely rare and extremely expensive, and I have not even seen any come up available anywhere. So, but I know they do exist. Now, the whole dollar denominations, of course, continue to be used in Korea clear until the end of this whole program in November of 1973. So even though another design would be made for now basically Korea, it would not be actually used, but we'll get to that in the next video. So anyway, Vietnam's using these from 1965. Korea, well, these are printed and it starts using these in 1969. However, on August 21, 1968, Vietnam switches to the next phase here. These were again designed and maybe printed in 1966. You see they have a new design. That girl may look a little familiar if you've seen the previous installment of this. And you notice in all of these, the designs are the same for each of the minor denominations, other than the denomination itself is called out, and of course the colors of the ink that are used for all the printing. The whole dollar denominations on up all have unique designs and different sizes. So you have the $1, which is now the same width as the fractions, but as tall as regular US currency, and that goes for all of these. And then the $5 has a somewhat wider intermediate width, introduced with Series 521. And then you had the $10, which has always been the full width of the regular American currency. And again, each with its own unique design. We'll get back to the similarity here shortly. And then for the series introduced in 1968, something new is introduced, a new denomination, namely $20. So that's a new thing. Now, in 1968, they still went ahead and released these because the idea, they were still thinking in terms of just using these. Plus, Vietnam was ramping up and they needed a lot of this stuff. So that's how these went. Now you notice that the original for Vietnam and the update, or the final one actually used for finally Korea, as well as the tiny bit of Japan and Libya, have essentially the same designs for all the denominations from one to the other than, you know, the colors of the ink, and one other curious difference that distinguishes them, and that is that the Korea series has a little Minuteman standing to the side, which the Vietnam does not have. There he is. He's not there. There he is. He's not there. There he is. He's not there. And that goes for these as well. There he is. And he's not there. There he is. And he's not there. There he is. And he's not there. So that was what these were. So they just simply used similar designs, and they just were basically designed by basically changing the color and adding a little Minuteman to the side the very next year, but these wouldn't be actually swapped in till 1969. So meanwhile, this has all of its usual designs, but of course, again, every year the designs are unique for each denomination. So that's how they had it. Now the security device applies again, just as before, and you can actually see, you can see the stuff glowing when you bring the light. Okay, here you got a lot of wiggly lines that show. Nothing shows on this fake because it's, well, it's just an imitation, just to give you an idea of what the thing looks like. Okay, here, yeah, you can see the netting in there. Here, look carefully, it's there, but it's hard to see. Okay, nothing will be there, of course. Okay, that shows pretty easy to see. That's really easy to see. Okay, that's pretty easy to see. That's easy to see. Nothing there. And even there, you can see it through the grunginess, because that's a rather circulated copy. There, yeah, you can see kind of like a chain link fence there. Now here, the 50 cents, this is real. So if you look carefully, it is in there. Okay, again, more wiggly lines, more of this kind of weird in the background. So here you can see some lines that are just barely visible. Okay, here, oh yeah, see that big spiry design, but in other places too. Here, okay, there's a little bit there. And here, yeah, again, you can see there's a real pattern. Okay, $5. Look at that, you really see the wavy lines there. Yeah, they're in there. It's harder to see, but they are in there. Yep, you can see them in there. Very easy to see in this. Wow, look at that. Okay, for $10. Yeah. Yeah, it's in there. There's a glow. It's not too big. You can see some different wavy lines underneath the hard, dark wavy lines. Okay. There they are. And finally here, you can see that. This is all an authentication technique. There, look at that chain link fence kind of background. So there you are. I thought I'd bring that all out. And finally, well, another thing to look at here, these numbers, these letters at the end. You notice everything has H's at the beginning and the end. As it was, the letter would go up with each version. So the original 461 had A's at each end. The 471 had B's. The 472 had C's. The 481 had D's. The 521 had E's. The 541 had F's. And the 591s had G's. So that takes us up to H. We skipped I, probably because I looks too much like a 1, so they just skipped over to J for this series. And but then for this reset here in Korea, they reset to A. So those are not just bogus numbers. They actually should be, the zeros indicate those would have been specimens if they'd been real ones, but they're just counterfeits, like I said, just so you could see what they're on counterfeits. You know what I mean? Simulations. But the real number you see here still has A's, so they reset that to A for this series. And then the next series gets B's, and you notice it always has these numbers at each end, or the letters at each end of the number, and so on. Now, what can happen though, and I have one example here, is this $10 one, which you'll notice there is no other number. There's J and then there's nothing at the end, and there too. That was, for these things, the equivalent of it in a normal American currency would have been a star note. So when the original note was made, that was supposed to be for that number. It didn't come out right, it had to be destroyed. They made a replacement note, but they showed the replacement by taking away the closing letter, the J in this case. And most notes of this category, there are notes available that will lack the missing letter, lack the final letter. As a way of indicating that they are replacement notes, just like we put stars on star notes for regular currency. And there's one more thing to look at, and I think that'll finish out what we have, and that would be the back sides of these. So I'm going to bring up the back sides, and as always, the back sides don't have anything to glow in the dark, so I could just show those, and that'll be that. So you're not missing anything there, because I'm not going to use the ultraviolet light here. Maybe I'll do it this way. But this, again, is just to see what these all look like. You can see them all, even though these three, you just know what they look like, but they're not real notes. So they're just used here so you can get an idea what colors would they be. And you know, I mean, the 5 cents actually kind of cool with the deep blue. I like that. But all of these are pretty, you know, really pretty colors. Okay, so as you can see, the original Vietnam one and the next one used for the Korea also match on the back again, except for the color combinations. So I've got all these things almost done here. Now let's turn these all over so we take a look. Again, same design, differing only in the denominations called out and the colors of the ink. Then its own unique design for the $1, a different unique design for the $5, and a different one still for the $10. Okay, again, a common design, actually this time between both of these, but with different colors, and for the denomination between the original Vietnam and the successor / final one for Korea. And again, yet other different colors here, but a matching design between the two. No Minuteman or other changes like that in the design. It's all just different color ink to indicate the different series. And then finally, the later one for Vietnam. Very distinctive backside with these little wheels. They look like something out of a toy they used to have around that time called spirograph, I think, or something. You could make patterns like a lot like those. So these look kind of neat. But as you can see, the back sides of these, unusual little baby doll. Looks like it belongs like a bottle of aspirins or something. Okay. And then finally, the new denomination, $20, has its own. And all of these, being the military payment certificates, have on them, they use not only the denomination, but the words military payment certificate, all in the same familiar kind of block lettering you'd see on a normal note that might say Federal Reserve note or silver certificate, etc. And they would also say here, for use only in United States military establishments by United States authorized personnel in accordance with applicable rules and regulations. Because that was it. The American servicemen and any women, and also any others working with them from other countries as may be applicable, and maybe some civilians living on base as contractors, and that would be it. Anyone that would be paid in these monies, you see, that would not interfere with the local economies, because they can't be spent off base, because everybody off base knows that these could be swapped out at any point, at any time, which is why we have the different series. So that's what there is to say on these, and again, thank you for watching.